afford these units outright, experts say it could lead to an...
In a world where developing nations are often expected to wait for foreign aid or outside expertise before tackling major challenges, something remarkable has been happening in the heart of West Africa. Without the world watching, and without much noise or headlines, Burkina Faso has pulled off a feat few thought possible. The country has built and deployed 500 electric buses. Not bought, built. No foreign engineers, no imported parts, no Chinese logos stuck to the side. Every single bus was conceived, designed, and assembled right there on Burkinabe soil. For many, especially in African cities where public transport often means refurbished vans or noisy diesel monsters, this development might sound like science fiction, but it's real, and it happened without the IMF, without World Bank advisors, and without donor conditions. So, how did one of Africa's so-called poorest nations beat the odds and do what many wealthier countries have only managed in pilot programs? The answer starts in a place once dismissed as an unfinished industrial dream, the UA 2000 corridor. It's now the nerve center of something far bigger than industry. It's become the soul of a national awakening. Years before a single bolt was tightened or a circuit connected, Burkina Faso began laying the foundation in an area where most countries rarely invest: its people. Vocational centers quietly began training local youth. Artisans, welders, and aspiring engineers started learning not how to copy, but how to build. This wasn't about bringing in experts to train locals to assemble foreign parts. This was about design from the ground up, made by people who understand the land they live in, its dust, its heat, its unreliable power grid, and its budget constraints. The buses weren't crafted in air-conditioned European labs. They were designed by people who ride on bad roads and wait at chaotic junctions every day. That lived experience turned into design intelligence. Instead of trying to copy a Mercedes or Tesla, the Burkinabe engineers asked, what kind of vehicle would survive and thrive on our streets? The result? A rugged, durable electric bus that glides across potholes, runs silently, needs no fuel, and costs far less to maintain than its diesel predecessors. But what really makes this story special is not just the vehicle, it's what the project didn't need. No flashy donor conferences, no white papers from think tanks, no technology transfer from the global north. President Ibrahim Traore's administration bet on Burkinabe talent and refused to play by the usual rules. Advisors warned him it might backfire, that the West wouldn't like it, that the project would fail without international backing. But they moved forward anyway. The government funded the entire program from internal revenues. They didn't beg for loans or grants. They built production plants. They gave the engineers space to experiment. No excessive red tape, no top-down micromanagement. The project was allowed to breathe. And now, those buses are rolling through Ouagadougou and beyond, not just as machines, but as symbols. Each one is a moving declaration. We're not waiting for the world. We're building it ourselves. Of course, building a bus is only half the story. The next challenge was keeping them moving. In a country where fuel prices are unpredictable and electricity supply is unstable, how do you power 500 electric buses daily? Each bus in the Italy fleet can travel up to 330 kilometers on a single charge. But what's even more impressive is that they can go from zero to full charge in just 30 minutes. No long queues at gas stations, no risk of outages from the national grid. It's a self-contained, locally powered system. And it didn't stop with urban centers. The same solar independence strategy that Traore's government had started in rural areas was now feeding into the country's public transport system. In simple terms, Burkina Faso didn't just build electric buses, they built an entirely new energy ecosystem to run them. The impact was immediate. Transport operators used to spending a fortune on fuel began reporting major savings. That money now goes into their families, their communities, and their futures. And with electric engines requiring far less maintenance, costs continue to drop. The environmental effects are impossible to ignore. In a city once choked by the fumes of outdated diesel engines, the air is noticeably cleaner. Noise pollution has gone down too. Constant rattling, the groans of old engines, the black clouds of exhaust, gone, replaced by near-silent movement and clean air. But what's even more profound is something harder to measure: psychological shift. For the first time, people are seeing their own country provide real solutions without outside help. The buses didn't just bring mobility, they brought pride. And this is where things get interesting. Because while the world holds endless summits about renewable energy and self-sufficiency, Burkina Faso went ahead and did it. No permission asked, no permission needed. That is what worries those who've benefited for decades from Africa's dependence. When a nation can fuel its economy without foreign energy markets, it becomes less manageable, less predictable, more sovereign. In the language of global politics, it becomes dangerous, not to its people, but to those who profited from its weakness. And yet, this isn't a threat, it's a blueprint. Across the continent, leaders are watching, citizens are watching, people are wondering, if Burkina Faso can do it, why not us? This is no longer just about transport. This is about rewriting what's possible when a nation trusts its own people, invests in its own capacities, and breaks free from the tired model of dependency. So far, we've looked at how Burkina Faso built and powered a fleet of 500 electric buses without foreign aid or imported dependency. But the story doesn't end with clean engines and quiet streets. Because in today's world, moving people efficiently isn't just about having the right wheels, it's about having the right information. And this is where Burkina Faso's quiet revolution becomes even more intriguing. Each electric bus isn't just a vehicle, it's a moving data hub. These aren't your standard buses with a driver, a horn, and some faded seat covers. Each one is fitted with a smart operating system designed by Burkinabe developers, many of them self-taught or trained in new local coding boot camps that have sprung up across Ouagadougou. What does that mean on the ground? It means every route, every stop, every idle minute is tracked in real time. A network of sensors and communication tools feed data back to a central control center. The system logs traffic patterns, peak congestion, even road quality feedback based on vibrations and braking frequency. Instead of guessing where the next traffic jam will be, the system learns it. For commuters, the change is immediate. Gone are the days of standing under a blistering sun, hoping a bus might appear. With mobile apps coded right there in Burkina Faso, passengers can see where the nearest bus is, how full it is, and how long it will take to arrive. It's not guesswork anymore. It's live, precise information. For drivers and operators, it's even more powerful. Routes can be adjusted dynamically. If congestion builds on a main road, the system suggests detours in real time. If a bus is running late, traffic lights can even be adjusted slightly to ease priority flow. And for city planners, the treasure trove is endless. Instead of spending months conducting manual traffic studies, the data from hundreds of buses now maps out where roads need widening, where new stops are necessary, or where pedestrian crossings could reduce accidents. All of this is happening with software built and maintained by local teams. No expensive international IT consultants. No overseas contracts draining public budgets. Burkina Faso chose to trust its own tech talent, and the gamble is paying off. But beyond efficiency, there's a powerful side effect: transparency. Public transport across Africa, and frankly around the world, is often plagued by small, persistent corruption. Fuel siphoning, ghost buses that exist only on paper but never hit the road, inflated maintenance invoices. Now, with a live tracking and accounting system, that becomes much harder. Every trip is logged, every charge is documented, the data is there for audits anytime. This has quietly reshaped the way transport operators and even small-scale managers behave. When systems are smart and transparent, people adjust. They know someone's watching, not with heavy-handed police force, but with unbiased data. It cuts out many small avenues of theft and wastage. That money stays in the system, which means more can be reinvested to expand services or keep fares affordable. And perhaps most importantly, this smart system isn't locked to buses alone. The architecture is designed to scale. Already, there are discussions about linking this same network to ambulances, agricultural machinery, delivery trucks, even school buses. Imagine a farmer being able to track when a fertilizer delivery truck will arrive, or parents knowing exactly when their children's school bus pulls up, all using the same backbone built originally for public buses. Meanwhile, other African nations have taken notice. What started as a local project is now drawing delegations from across West Africa. Engineers and transport ministers from Ghana, Niger, Mali, and Togo have walked the shop floors of the UA 2000 corridor, inspecting the buses, studying the software dashboards, and leaving with the same question: how did they do this without foreign oversight? And more importantly, can we get it too? This is where the idea starts to shift from national pride to continental opportunity. For decades, Africa has exported raw materials, cocoa, cotton, crude oil, only to buy back finished goods at a markup. Burkina Faso is quietly rewriting that script. They're not exporting ore, they're now poised to export entire electric buses. But even more valuable than the buses is the ecosystem, the software, the solar infrastructure, the maintenance models, the vocational training blueprints. It's a rare case where an African country is not only making something at scale, but controlling the intellectual property behind it. That means neighboring countries aren't forced to buy fully finished products. Instead, they can set up partial assembly plants, train local workers, adapt the software for their own traffic and climate, and build ownership along the way. And Burkina Faso stands to profit not by locking them into dependency, but by licensing the designs and training programs, becoming a regional hub for green mobility. It's hard to overstate how significant that is. A country long dismissed as economically fragile is now the one writing export contracts, not for coffee beans, but for smart, zero-emission mass transport. Of course, none of this guarantees a perfect future. Scaling up will bring its own headaches. Can Burkina Faso source enough materials for batteries as demand grows? Will political shifts in future administrations stay committed to this homegrown strategy? And what happens when traditional fuel lobbies or foreign bus suppliers realize their market share is under threat? But even with these challenges on the horizon, the psychological shift is irreversible. Young coders in Ouagadougou aren't dreaming of emigrating for work at a European startup. They're building systems right there that other African countries want to buy. Apprentices in welding shops see themselves not as the bottom rung of a global supply chain, but as critical players in a continental transformation. By trusting its own people, Burkina Faso has sparked a shift that extends far beyond transport. It's reshaping what young Africans imagine is possible on their own soil. By now, it's clear that Burkina Faso's electric bus story is about far more than just transport. It's about how a country long painted as fragile and dependent is flipping that narrative on its head and inviting the rest of Africa to rethink what's possible. Because the truth is, these buses aren't just rolling through Ouagadougou's streets. They're rolling into boardrooms, trade summits, and climate talks across the continent. They're forcing old players to pay attention and forcing new conversations to happen. Start with trade. For decades, the African Continental Free Trade Area has promised a common market of 1.4 billion people. But grand ideas often crash into small, gritty obstacles. Border delays, patchy roads, outdated customs processes, and a chronic reliance on foreign-made goods. Burkina Faso's transport model offers something different, a real-world demonstration of what intra-African trade could look like. Picture this, a fully electric bus, assembled in Burkina Faso, driving itself overland into Ghana or Mali, serviced by mechanics trained in Burkina's own vocational centers, paid for through emerging regional payment systems that avoid foreign currency volatility. At each step, production, maintenance, operation, payment, value stays within Africa. It's the kind of seamless regional supply chain that policy papers have fantasized about for years, but never managed to implement. Then there's climate diplomacy. For years, African leaders have been scolded at international conferences to cut emissions, while simultaneously being denied the technology and financing to actually do it. Western nations fly in with glossy presentations on green energy, then leave African nations with more debt than solutions. Now, a country listed by the UN as least developed has built a zero-emission transport fleet with its own money, its own engineers, and its own sun. When Burkina Faso, or any other African country following this model, walks into the next global climate summit, it won't be as a junior partner begging for adaptation funds. It will be as a peer, holding up a working, scalable example of climate action done right. That changes the negotiating power dramatically. Suddenly, Africa has a real card to play. It can demand fairer financing for renewable infrastructure, push for African-led standards on things like battery recycling, and build sovereign carbon markets that aren't set by foreign consultancies. And look even closer to home, inside African politics itself. Across the continent, the word sovereignty has often been cheap talk, shouted at rallies, but rarely backed up by industrial or technological muscle. Traoré's buses, built, powered, and coded in Burkina Faso, are physical proof that sovereignty can be more than slogans. Reformist politicians from Dakar to Dar es Salaam are paying attention. So are civil society groups. They see these quiet electric buses not just as vehicles, but as evidence that with the right political will, you can deliver jobs, cut pollution, and stand taller on the global stage. All without waiting for a green light from Paris, Brussels, or Washington. It's even stirring the financial sector. Banks that long dismissed African hardware ventures as too risky are revising their models. Pension funds, Islamic finance networks, and BRICS-friendly investment houses are now circling Burkina Faso, not to hand out aid, but to discuss equity stakes, joint ventures, and scaling up solar grids and smart mobility systems. For once, Africa's creditworthiness is being measured in megawatts generated and kilometers driven, not in outdated ratings cooked up by agencies half a world away. And then, maybe most profoundly, there's the psychological shift. Scroll through WhatsApp groups in cities from Lagos to Lusaka, and you'll see videos of these buses gliding through Ouagadougou traffic. Not belching smoke, not imported secondhand from Europe, built right there by Africans for Africans. Young coders who might once have dreamed of nothing more than a visa to Canada are now pitching mobility algorithms for the next generation of buses. Welders who once hoped for a mining job abroad are enrolling in apprenticeships to work on chassis for regional exports. It's quietly rewriting the very idea of aspiration. Of course, none of this is inevitable or permanent. The challenges ahead are enormous. Maintaining political unity around this vision won't be easy. Sourcing enough minerals for batteries without falling into new exploitative traps is a real concern. And you can be sure the legacy oil lobbies and old bus suppliers aren't just going to watch their markets evaporate without a fight. But even if Burkina Faso's model stumbles, the idea it unleashed can't be put back in the box. Across Africa, people have seen that it's possible to design, build, and run complex systems without handing over control to someone else. They've glimpsed a future where Africa is the maker, the seller, and the standard setter. So maybe that's why these 500 buses whisper something larger than any speech ever could. As they roll through dusty streets, silent and solar-powered, they carry an unspoken question. If Burkina Faso can do this, why can't we? What do you think? Could more African nations pull this off? Should they? Would you ride on one of these buses if it came to your city? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. If you found this story as eye-opening as we did, please support our work by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.